you don't have European football. You've had time to work with many of these players. And what's so obvious is there's very, very little in the way of patterns of play. When rightly so, by the way, when Wolves were sitting back and parking the bus, you expect some movement from the wingers and from the center forward, and there's almost none. It really is Enzo looking up with his foot on the ball, waiting for something to happen. And then he tries to force it in and loses the ball. Surely that's on the manager. Surely we can't just go and point fingers at players when we know the players are really young and some of them aren't very good.
See, there's one thing people don't understand about coaching. You can spend as many hours as you want on a field with a player, showing them time and time and time and time again where to be, what you should be thinking about. But see, when the whistle goes, the amount of times that players don't do the thing you've told them 1,000 times, Gab, would absolutely astound you. There's a difference between on a training field and setting things up and showing players, where your starting position is, where you want to be, and if you're a defender, where the forward is, and all of these things, and walking them through it, because I've done it 100 times. But then when the whistle goes, something happens. That's the difference between the good players and certainly in the professional ranks. The difference between the guys at the top and the guys who make a living out of it. The guys at the top, you tell them once. The proper players, you tell them once, maybe twice, and that's it. But the other guys, they don't get it ever. They never get it. And unfortunately, just because somebody spends 50 million on you doesn't mean that you're going to get it. It should, but clearly these guys at Chelsea don't get it, because there is absolutely no way that Pochettino is not talking to them constantly, doing certain patterns of play and all other things. It's an impossibility he's not doing that. It's down to the players. When that whistle goes, something happens between the ears.
Maybe as a byproduct of the fact that they don't get it, Stevie, what I see from this team is there is such fragility to this group. They could be controlling a game. It could feel like they're playing well, and one bad thing happens or one negative thing happens, and they melt.
They kill out.
They fall apart, and they fall apart not in one sequence. They fall apart throughout the match, and there is no getting it back together. And so I see a team that is fragile mentally because there is a lack of confidence. I see a team that is fragile as a whole because they know. They hear it all the time, and now they have confirmation, given their performances, that they're not good enough. And so it all sort of feeds itself into this vicious circle of we think we're not good. We now get confirmation that we're not good. We don't have the answers to the questions. How do we get out of this? I don't know, because he doesn't know. I don't know. He doesn't know either, and therefore we all accept our fate. And our fate is to continue to lose games like this. It is a terrible place to be as a club and as a player.
Gab, if you get your wish and Pochettino is sacked, then who do you want to come in? Who can come in and fix this mess?
I don't know. Look, it's not my wish for Pochettino to be sacked. It's my wish for Pochettino to do better. It's my wish that maybe Chelsea had looked a little bit closer, maybe at what happened in the final kind of 18 months of his regime at Tottenham, and indeed during his entire stint at Paris Saint-Germain, and ask themselves, was he right for this group of players? I think it's a very valid question. And look, I appreciate what Stevie said about, you can coach them up, but then when they go onto the field, if they don't listen, they don't listen. Well, you know what? I watched Brighton last year. I saw Moises Caicedo listening for a very good coach in Roberto De Zerbi. I saw Cole Palmer and Raheem Sterling listen for a very good coach in Pep Guardiola. I even saw Enzo Fernandez listening when he was at Benfica for Roger Schmidt. So I can't really understand and say, but these guys are all dum-dums who don't listen. Well, they obviously listen to some coaches. He has to find the right message and find a way through to them to get them to execute.
Yeah, but that's why we talk about putting a team together with different personalities and different... Caicedo might be a fragile individual. He might look like Mr. Hardman on the field, but actually inside he might be a fragile individual. who at Brighton, amongst a group that looks after him and everybody knows the role and they all get it, and then he's put in a position where the team's struggling, and because he's a fragile individual, it's not quite happening. These things happen. That's why we talk about the best teams have got all kinds of different characters and different individuals. And when you stick particularly a load of young guys in with no experience, then without help, they're not going to rise at all. And it pretty much looks like that right now.
Chelsea play midweek, of course, in the Carabao, not in the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup. They're in the Carabao Cup final. It is the FA Cup replay as they take on Aston Villa on Wednesday.